Yeah, it's funny for those of you who were at the AI seminar that we did for the Auburn Hills Chamber. Um, that day, that day, a lot of AI announcements hit, and it was just funny. So I kind of want to spend a little bit of time, not too much. We have a good amount to get through today. I need to I need to move quickly. So, but I also said that this is beginner level. So if there's anything that might be a little bit too far ahead, feel free to raise your hand. Um, I want this to be interactive. I want this to be collaborative. We're all learning together. So yeah, with that, why don't we kick things off?
Matthew, let me
I know
just
that,
make one note. So
yeah.
I'm here. I'm Matthew's background tech support. Hi, y'all. Hi, Tom. Hi, TJ. Good to see you guys.
Hey,
And
welcome, welcome.
Matt, um, I know there's others on here that I could say hi to, but why waste time? If you want to put questions in the chat, then we can get to those if Matthew's in the middle of talking or someone else has a question. That's it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, Linda will help facilitate this. So um I wanted to kind of just kick things off with a little bit of AI news for those of you who are expecting it. Can you all still see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So a few updates since the last time we talked. So Apple, who has notoriously been late to the game on AI, which is a little bit surprising, has now announced that they are going to be ramping up and adopting some of these frontier models as part of their base operating system, which is exciting. That's, I mean, it's a good first step. I'm an Apple user, so I'm kind of like, all right, Apple, get with the program here. Siri is still like she was 10 years ago. So that'll be good. They've also, Apple's kind of been, one thing I do appreciate what they've been doing is because they're late to the game, they've actually been investing in kind of calling out the hype a little bit, which is good. We kind of need that. So Apple's actually been testing a lot of the frontier models like OpenAI, Gemini, and really pushing those things through rigorous tests to see if they're actually living up to the hype, which doesn't necessarily concern the people on this webinar, but for me, trying to understand what tools to invest my time in, that's very helpful. So, Google made some major breakthroughs and announced that the day we did our webcast, or not our webcast, our seminar. And one of them, namely, being their VEO3 video generation model. For those of you who have Google Gemini with your Google Workspace, this comes to you for free. I would encourage you just to play around with it. It's incredibly fun and incredibly impressive what you can generate. Um, so we'll kind of talk about some of those video content generation tools. But in addition to that, they announced their Google Agent Space, which is still closed off to the public, but it's one of the things that we've been using a little bit of with their more preliminary models. So we are part of Google's beta testing group that I mean, anybody can join, but you have to kind of like submit for it. So that's something that we've been getting into, but that's something that's going to really be exciting for all of your jobs coming forward. So this is a big deal. AI and AMD, which has notoriously been famous for creating their CPUs, is now entering the GPU game in order to compete with NVIDIA. For those of you who don't know, in the last seminar, we kind of discussed a little bit how GPUs are basically the innovation that's powering AI. So now if two companies are battling it out, it creates more competition, which will mean rapid advancement of GPUs, hopefully. And then finally, Meta, which they're the ones who run Facebook. They have announced that they're going to be really stepping up their AI game, which they're already doing a lot. But one of the things that they're aiming to do is to, within 2 years, I think it is 1 to 2 years, have a platform within Meta where you can go and you just give it whatever your budget is and you state your goals for your marketing campaign, and you just give it a few prompts and it'll basically run all of your marketing. Something that would have cost a professional agency with experienced, knowledgeable people hundreds of thousands of dollars is now going to be ideally readily available. But in addition to that, they are trying to get more into, you can see up there, replacing human moderators with AI. That's actually a good thing, so that those bots will then go through and moderate the content. Um, and so there's a lot we could go over in more detail, but for now, that's just a brief overview of some of the news. Any questions or thoughts on that before I get into it? All right, cool. With that, why don't we move on? So for the agenda today, for the agenda, we're going to kind of do a brief recap of what we discussed in the seminar. And I really just went through and just picked out not everything, but just the high level details or the high level things that I felt like were the most relevant from the seminar. Then we're going to discuss a few tools that are available. This is mostly within marketing and sales. So we're not going to dive into any of operating, running your operations. We're not going to discuss any of those tools. We're mostly going to be discussing around marketing. And then the meat of what we're going to talk about today is training custom GPTs. I know that this sounds super intimidating, but I'm telling you, it's amazing. You're going to love it. You're going to thank me by the time this is over, because this is something that I think is going to help all of you, not just now, but down the road. And then we're going to have Q&A, but if you do have some thoughts or questions, feel free to speak out. All right, so let's get into it. One of the big things that we talked about from the seminar was how AI use cases are very similar to playing with Legos. And the reason why I bring that up is because in this environment that we work within, everyone's kind of showing like what it is that they have found to be beneficial for them. Oops, I apologize. I don't know why, but my little bar here is at the bottom, and I guess that's just the way it is. I don't know how to get rid of it. But when somebody's showing you something that they found, use that as like as a launching board for your own creativity, because what these AI tools kind of represent are, instead of just being given us like a SaaS model, like a software as a service, like that you would traditionally use, you're given a bunch of different tools that you can piece together to make like your own custom thing. And that's we're going to start seeing in the next couple of years, which is everyone using their own bots to create whatever they want. And I know that this scares a lot of people, but it's actually going to create a ton of opportunities for people who have been limited by their budget or their understanding and expertise. So that's just a quick little analogy. I'll kind of circle back to that a few times. Another thing that we discussed in the seminar was the different AI perspectives or attitudes. You know, we have people who are excited, people who are fearful, people who are annoyed, people who are indifferent, and we all kind of bounce around between these. The idea is to be somewhere, and then obviously we have our secondary emotions. We're nervous, resistant, dismissive, complacent. And the idea is to be somewhere in the middle. That's the sweet spot. We call that healthy adoption. And this is something that we all have to be periodically checking ourselves on, that we make sure that we are, if we're feeling indifferent, we have to adopt a few other perspectives that I'll talk about here in a second that are going to help us stay closer to the middle. And those are, if you're feeling excited, be a little bit skeptical. You can save yourself from poor investments of your time and energy and your money by just being a bit skeptical. If you're fearful, adopt some rationale, understand what these tools can and cannot do, and don't always listen to the people who are hyping up these tools. Then you can't see it at the bottom because my bar is blocking it, which there's really got to be a way to hide that bar. Either way, it says being pragmatic. So adopting a bit of pragmatism is going to go a long way. And then finally, if you're indifferent, adopt a little bit of curiosity. These are things that we all have to stay within. I find myself going all over the map. And so when I find myself being annoyed, I have to get back to the tools and understand what they can do. Help me understand to be more pragmatic is helpful. Wherever you're at, think about this map as something that is a healthy approach to AI. All right. Any questions or thoughts on that before I move on? Okay. All right. So then, and then just some quick terminology. Just this is more so for your own knowledge so that you can sound smarter to people when you're talking about AI. Um, Things that you'll hear people say or refer to that might go over your head. Just to kind of bring you up to speed on some of those terminologies. We have ML or machine learning. This is basically traditional AI. This is the machine's basically being trained on data. Um, that's what that is. LLMs, that's something you'll hear me say a lot. That's just a broad term for a large language model. Those represent anything from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Grok. When you think of AI, your chances are you're thinking of an LLM. Um, when you hear the term generative AI, that basically just means an AI model that can generate text, images, audio, or video. Um, so then we have agentic AI. That's another term that you might hear me using a lot. And that's basically AI agents. So that's your agentic. That's where you get the word agentic. That is an AI bot that basically has been given hands so that it can then go and interact. It can interact with tools and do work on your behalf. Then you have these three terms here, ANI, AGI, ASI. These are more so like phases of AI development. Right now, we're in the ANI stage, which is narrow intelligence. This is basically like individual tools. Think of like if you had a workshop and all these tools on the wall. Each AI represents a tool that you'd have to pick up off the wall and use. You're still the general intelligence that determines what tools to pick. AGI is what you'll hear a lot of people talking about these days. That's artificial general intelligence. That would basically be like going back to that tool analogy. On the wall of tools, you're traditionally the one who would pick the tools. Well, an AGI is a bot that can stand in the place of the human and determine which tools to use in essence. Um, there's a lot of debate around when we get to that point because anytime cognitive tasks are automated, we as humans just develop new cognitive tasks. So the question of is AGI ever something that's going to come fully? That's debatable. Um, Now, in addition to that, then we have ASI, artificial super intelligence. This is science fiction at this point, but it's basically an AGI that is supercharged, that actually exponentially gets smarter and it teaches itself how to get smarter. That's not something that is necessarily possible right now. We would need breakthroughs in order to see something like that happen. Um, but that's where you get all that sci-fi stuff, you know. So, anyways, moving on. Any questions or thoughts about that? Okay. I know I'm throwing a lot at you really fast. This isn't necessarily something that you have to know. Just it's just good to have a glossary of terms. All right. We talked about some principles. I feel like the number one principle to take away is always use AI to get better with AI. Anytime somebody says, "Where should I begin with AI?" Start with AI. So go to ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude or whichever your LLM of choice is, and just start there and say, "Hey, I'm a beginner. Help me get started with AI." In addition to that, these webinars are designed to help beginners get up to speed and develop faster ways of doing their work with AI. So that's a quick recap from the last seminar. If I'm moving too quickly, slow me down. If you got any thoughts or questions, let me know. All right, so tools. This is something that I feel a lot of people have been asking is what are some of the best tools that I can begin using today? So we're going to cover a few. We're not going to cover all of them. In fact, I specifically chose not to give you every tool. I'm literally just handpicking a few tools that I think would be relevant for your sales and marketing efforts. So first of all, we talk about LLMs. This is something that is extremely relevant because LLMs are going to be your starting point for AI. We have ChatGPT. That's made by OpenAI. ChatGPT is great for general purpose queries. And it's like a good all around tool for getting started with AI. When people think, oh, what should I be using? Should I be using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Grok or any of these other ones? what I usually tell them is just start with ChatGPT. It's a good general purpose LLM. Then we have Google Gemini. This I have found. So I try to use as many different LLMs as I can because they all have different strengths and weaknesses. Gemini is really good for multimodal, which multimodal basically means an LLM that can interact with all the different generative AI. Remember, we talked about generative AI, text, images, video, audio. Google Gemini is a good all-around multimodal LLM that can work with a lot of those. Another thing that I found really helpful with it is it's more so good for corporate work because it's more a lot more impersonal. And I go to Google Gemini when I need to do troubleshooting. It also integrates really well with the Google Workspace, which is super helpful. Then going from there, you have Grok, which is XAI or Elon Musk's AI model. Um, Grok is super good for up-to-date information. And the reason why is because the way how all of these LLMs are trained is based on data sets. And so ChatGPT, Google Gemini, all of the major LLMs have been trained on a data set, which is basically a snapshot of the internet in time. So if you were to ask one of those things, something that's current, it's going to be a little bit more outdated. But Grok, because it's owned by Elon Musk, also is owned by X. Grok is trained on X, the Twitter platform's data set, which is constantly up to date. It's about the most up to date data set that you could find. And so the other reason why I like Grok for certain things is if you talk to any of these LLMs, their number one goal is to be agreeable with you so that it will increase your likelihood of using it. Grok is not designed to be agreeable. Grok is designed to just give you straight talk. So if you ever need straight talk, up-to-date information, that's where I go to Grok. Then Claude is really good for if you really want human-like communication. Claude. What's so interesting about Claude is Anthropic, the company that powers Claude, they actually take AI ethics very seriously. Um, some would argue a little too seriously. I don't know, but they basically have somebody on staff at Claude or at Anthropic who is actually a grief counselor for the AI, so that the AI can just share its thoughts and feelings with the grief counselor. The grief counselor checks in and says, "How are you doing? Do you feel burdened by it?" So they want Claude to be as human as possible so that if you're interacting with it, you can actually offend this LLM, which is very interesting. Um, but it's also really good for writing code. I don't necessarily know if anyone here would be interested in that, but that's kind of one of the functions of Claude. Another thing that is really powerful about Claude is they can handle extremely long series of texts. Most of these LLMs will cap it at a certain character length. Claude will go in seriously long lengths. I've heard up to 60,000 words, which is like a book, which is pretty intense. Then going from there, you
Oh,
have Llama, which,
Matthew, so what you mean
yes,
is when they take that long of a text, that means you can input it. So if I copy 1,000 words and try to say, hey, Gemini, can you review this and tell me if you see any gaps in this summary? And it goes, oh, sorry, you're over word length, but Claude will
yeah,
take it. Is that what you mean?
yes. In fact, you could actually take two books and upload that, send them to Claude and say, I like these two books. Can you create me a new book that merges these together? You know, that's something that Claude can do. It doesn't as far as in depth, it doesn't go to the same uh quality depth, I guess you could say, but it's like longer strings of text. Llama, which I don't think is super relevant for anybody on this call, but what's cool about Llama is it's open source, which means you can download this LLM and have it custom working on your computer, provided you have a very fast computer. And this is how people are training their own personal models. This is pretty advanced. We're not even to this stage yet, just because it's not necessarily something that we would need to do. If you were, say, in a law firm or um, medical, where you have HIPAA compliance, or maybe if you're in the financial sectors where you have SEC compliance, you would really consider if you really wanted your own local LLM, this would be the way to go. But this is going to not be something that you would do, but you would hire somebody to do because this requires developers and architects and people to implement this technology. But that's the route that you would go if you want it all like not cloud based, but like local server based. And then finally have Copilot, which full transparency, I don't really think Copilot's that great as an LLM, but what it does do is it's integrated with the Microsoft Workspace, which I haven't seen anything crazy come out of yet. I use the Microsoft Workspace. Once it starts to get fully agentic, that's when a lot of people are going to start using Copilot. And one of the cool things that Copilot can be able to do someday, they were actually going to release this sooner, but they realized it violated major security concerns, was that it would be able to actually watch you work and learn how to do certain jobs. That's something that I would love to have because there's a lot of redundant tasks that we do, generating time reports for clients. There's just a lot of pretty low level tasks that you could ideally you could just have it watch you work and then say repeat this task and coach it and train it. We're not there yet, but that's definitely something to pay attention to. Okay, any questions or yes.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't want you to go on. Yes, there's a question.
Yeah.
And that would be okay if it watched you, if you give it permission to watch you for this one and not for that one. So TJ, I know you're
Sure.
smiling because you have all that law background. You're like talking about privacy. Okay, we have a question in from Mike. Is Grok
Yes.
only pulling information and data sets from X? Can it detect AI generated information or can it identify false? So when you said that too, I was thinking along with what Mike said. If it's just getting from X, I mean, you got anybody putting in, how are you going to know that the information that Grok is putting out is, yeah, no, we didn't start a war with Canada.
Well, right. That's a good question. So, they started with like there are these base models that are open source, um that are grounded in a snapshot of truth, like I said, like the other ones are. But what Grok does on top of that, it layers to make sure that the data is super up to date. They have a ton of like those community notes, but they have a ton of fact checking, like a lot of these other companies do, to make sure across different platforms there's the information isn't skewed. Now, there is always a rule of thumb with whenever AI gives you something, you have to verify it. You can't just like trust everything it tells you because AIs hallucinate. If they don't know something, they will deliver with full confidence something based on a certain likelihood, but they will deliver whatever you're asking for in full confidence, whether it's true or not. A lot of times they're guessing. Now, that was more of an issue back, I would say, 2 years ago. The models have gotten a lot smarter, so they're not necessarily going to hallucinate as much. But yes, I would say, great question, Mike. It's a good idea to always verify things. I don't necessarily think that a lot of the crazy people on X are influencing its knowledge of what it knows to be true, more as far as like up to date news and relevant information. That's my understanding of how it works. But I also am answering that not necessarily uh, with full assurance because I've not thought about that yet. So that's a good question. But that would be my guess. So all right, let's move on unless there's any other questions. Okay. So then we just to talk about a few sales tools, we have and the reason why I plug HubSpot and not Salesforce is one, we're HubSpot implementers, because HubSpot is a very in-depth and intense CRM that can do a ton. And HubSpot has done very, very well in the AI sphere. Their competitor, Salesforce, has their own suite of AI agents, but I'm going to pick favorites here and say I like HubSpot better because we work with HubSpot. And I think that HubSpot is just a little bit better to use personally. But HubSpot has a lot of tools that, in addition to their regular suite of tools, that are agentic, which means those AI tools those AI LLMs that have been given hands that can go and do work. So as just a quick example, we have a HubSpot agent that is designed for cold outreach um, um, email campaigns. And the cool thing about it is it doesn't violate any canned spam laws because it's giving a personal outreach and including all of my information, like my phone number, email address. So it's technically an email coming from my email inbox that what I do is I give a contact information to this bot, and I all it needs is like a name, an email address, and a company or a website. And it goes and it does research on that person, does research on the company, gets a good understanding of what this person needs, then compares that with what we have to offer, and then crafts a series of emails that are then ready to go. And we just have to launch and just say approve. Now, we could take it a step further and not even give it a need for approval. We could just say fully autonomous, just whatever name I give you and whatever messages you craft, just go with that. Another cool agent that they have is a custom chatbot agent on your website. This is not, this wouldn't be necessarily like pre-programmed automated responses that then lead you to a person, but it would actually be an LLM that is trained on your data, your company data, so that it can actually talk to people on your website as if it was a real person. So that's a pretty cool tool that HubSpot has. There's a few others. They have an agentic tool that can generate HubSpots that can generate podcasts regularly. They can generate social media regularly. All of this stuff automatic without our approval if we wanted it to. But we are too concerned about our brand to just let a bunch of stuff just start flying out there. So that's why we appreciate that these tools are here, but we haven't really began to fully launch them yet because we have to make sure that when they are launched, they are supporting our brand image. Because, like we say here at Identity Creative, we brand first. We don't want to really we don't want to hurt our brand. So moving on, we have ZoomInfo, which anybody involved in sales, I'm sure, has heard of. ZoomInfo is great for prospecting. They even have these AI tools where you can say, you can give it a contact, and then it, from that contact can say, here's a really good sales, like a campaign strategy to win this business. Um, to my knowledge, ZoomInfo is the leader in this space, and they also have integrations with Salesforce or HubSpot, depending on whichever CRM you're interested in using. Um, then moving on from there, we have Gong, which I think is really cool. I personally haven't used this yet, but I've looked into it, and it's a really cool tool that is basically like having your sales coach with you on a call, and it will actually listen to what the people are saying and say, "Hey, why don't you say this? Don't forget to encourage them. Don't forget to, you know what I'm saying? Something like that is going to be a huge asset to salespeople, especially if you're doing a lot of digital sales.
Will it tell me to
Um,
stop talking?
I don't know. To be honest, I know that one of the guys here on the call, Scott, I don't know if you can hear me, but he was showing me some of the tools that he's using, like ZoomInfo and Gong. Um, and it's pretty cool the stuff that you can use them for. So that's it for the sales tech stack. There's obviously more tools out there. I went through a lot of them. I was like, I think these are the top ones that I think are most relevant. Moving on from that, we have our marketing tech stack, which there's a lot here, so I'll try to move quickly since we're already at 11 o'clock. First off, HubSpot, I know I just mentioned that for sales. It's also great for marketing. Like I mentioned, their podcast generation, their social media generation. There's a lot of content that you can use to generate, and it's all AI powered, but then you can go in there and you can tweak it. So it's also a really good marketing tool. Then you have Midjourney. I use this all the time. Midjourney is basically an image generation tool, and it was the first one that got really popular for being extremely powerful. I've been a faithful Midjourney user for years, but now it's so good. You can generate images that, well, to be honest, every single image that you've seen so far is generated on Midjourney. Um, a good competitor to that one would be ChatGPT's 4o model, that does pretty good images as well. In my opinion, I think Midjourney is a little bit better with people. Um, So then moving on from there, we have Runway, which is video generation. Runway can also work with some of these image gen tools because Runway is a credits-based system. So what I and a lot of other content creators will do is you will create your images in a tool like Midjourney, bring it into Runway, and then say make this image a video, and it does an incredible job. So I use that for content creation for creating video promos and stuff. Then we have Descript. Descript would be really good. I know we have the Palettes team on here. Descript is going to be your best friend for doing your video edits. It's designed for podcast editing, but what it can really do well is it can do transcript-based editing where basically you go through, let's say you have the transcript from a video you recorded. You can actually go through and delete a line here, delete this whole section of text, and it'll go through and edit the video and seamlessly transition. It will also then take, you can say, I want to generate social media cuts from this. It can then go through and pick out the best snippets, readjust the frame for vertical, whatever you want, and then it'll create those open captions too for social media. It's like the number one video editing tool for podcasts and social media posts. In addition to that, we have Artlist. This is for more advanced content creation. You can generate everything from voiceovers to music. Artlist is like my go-to for more advanced content creation. In addition to all of those AI tools, they have this massive pre-built library of actual footage, actual music, and all of those like After Effects templates, things like that. If you're into content creation, going on from there, we have Canva, which some of our team uses for to do more like finely tuned social media posts. They have AI tools that can generate a lot of stuff, and then you go in there and tweak it. Canva is getting really good, and I would say that if you haven't tried it, you should just do like a quick demo and just see if you can up your social media game using Canva. Moving on from there, we have Surfer SEO, which we haven't used yet, but as I was looking into it, I was like, this is a good one to put on there because Surfer SEO will go through and rate what you're doing before you even do it and give you a prediction as far as how good it's going to perform. That would be really powerful so that you could do split tests without even having to post anything. Um, so that would be a really cool tool for a marketing team if they want to see how effective their posts are going to be. Um, Moving on from there,
Matthew?
we're going to get into
Matthew?
the meat of it. But actually, before we do, before I move from this section, are there any thoughts, questions?
There were.
Yes. Yes.
So back, Scott did respond about Gong, which is pretty cool. He says, uh, Gong will say something like, you had a 3-minute monologue. Try to keep it to 1 minute and 30 seconds, which
I
is,
love it.
when you're selling and you just go on and on and on, and the person's mind is somewhere else. Like that's a great reminder. And then Amanda has a question. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Canva, Matthew. We have team members that are more familiar. It says, which features or where are the features in Canva?
So, good question there. I actually have not spent any time in Canva. I know that our team has. Um, oh, their image. Yeah, yeah. So the best image gen is going to be Midjourney. It costs $10 a month, and it's amazing. Um, if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you can use their 4.0 model, which I can show how to use. That's going to be much better as well. But as far as yeah, I remember on our call we did the green eggs and ham. Um, there's for anytime you're using a tool that is not necessarily designed for image gen, like for instance in Google's Google it's not Google Sheets, Google PowerPoint, and it's not PowerPoint. Google Slides, that's what it's called. Within Google Slides, you can generate images for those slides, and that's okay. Um, but if you really want good image gen, go to like Midjourney. If you want image gen that has text, Chat 4.0 is probably going to be a much better option. But those two I found are some of the best ones. Google's VO is getting really good too. One of the things I love about this competition is they're all trying to one up each other, and what it's doing is it's creating such rapid advancement of tools. It's almost like It's almost like if you were to walk into like a marketplace and someone's like, "Look at this thing I have to show you." Well, look at no, look at my thing. I'll give it to you for $10. I'll give it to you for $5. So it's really creating a lot of cool tools that we can start using and play with. It's like I use that analogy with Legos. It's almost like they're just like dumping Legos like every week. Like here's these new Legos that you can play with. Like, oh no, I'm still getting used to the last ones. So yeah. As far
Okay,
as how to
I
get
just
to
want,
the AI
Matthew,
generation tool within Canva, um, I, our team member here who uses it isn't on the call right now, but my assumption is it's pretty self-explanatory if you were able to maybe just play around with that tool.
I
Uh,
think,
it-
Matthew,
yeah.
I think too, what they'll do is they'll generate a tool and then use an image generation or pull in a real image and then from
Oh,
another tool and then bring it in. And then I see
yeah.
Canva is the layout for basic social stuff that doesn't take a lot of in-depth design.
Also, thank you, Helena. She put on here an image how to get to the AI tools. So there's that looks like it's like a little button that you just push to get over there. Canva AI is easy and quick. Thank you, Helena. I appreciate filling in the gaps of my ignorance there. I personally have not used Canva, but I know that we use it. So, any other thoughts or questions on some of these tools? Awesome. I know that the Palettes team, they do a lot of their own video content generation. I really think some of these tools could up your game and speed up your edit times. Like especially like the script. So,
Yeah,
um,
thank you for that, Matthew. And then also, we sort of have two goals with the purpose of this is also to see what we could do as far as operationally with the law firm, what we can have AI incorporate to
yes.
help us with some of our tasks, especially our email management.
So as far as email, that's a good question. So as far as email management, what I'm trying to do right now is build a tool that can go through my email inbox and actually be like my personal assistant for my email inbox. I have not yet found a tool that does that well. So, um, what you would have to do is stay on top of these tools and see what eventually I tried out a few tools that they claimed to be email management tools. And quite honestly, they didn't do a very good job. I was pretty underwhelmed by it. Um, but as far as for operations going, we're not gonna. Well, what I'll do is I'll give. So as we get into the custom training, this is something that you can use and implement for operations. But our goal here at Identity Creative is mostly focused on generating more sales, increasing your marketing, and bolstering your brand using AI tools. There are a lot of operational AI tools that are not necessarily something that I have enough expertise to speak to. However, what we'll discuss here in a few minutes as far as training bots is something that you could use for operations. So, without further ado, I guess I'll get into that right now. So, custom GPT training is not something to be scared of, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So, first off, let's understand there are some best practices for training a bot. First off, you have to understand why you're doing this. Um, are you doing this to save time? Are you doing this um, to speed up certain processes? There's different reasons for creating a bot. And what you'll find is a lot of times you might, after you create your first bot, you're going to find a new reason to create another bot and then another and then another. And you're going to just keep building bots from there that do different things. So then you have to begin with the end in mind. You have to know exactly what you want this bot to do and how you want this bot to help you in order to, because if you just say, I just want to create a bot, but you don't necessarily know what you want it to do or what's the purpose of it, you're just going to not really create something that's super effective. Um, Also, understanding the difference between knowledge and wisdom, just in general. You've heard the saying, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad, right? So, understanding that breakdown between knowledge and wisdom as far as training an AI is going to be very important. And I'll show you how to do that too. And then finally, you have to be patient and persistent because there's going to be times where you just want to kind of give up on it a little bit because it can be frustrating, but you just got to power through. So, as far as knowing your why, has anybody seen the movie Avengers Age of Ultron? So I'll paint the quick picture for you. So in the Avengers movies, you got Iron Man starting in the first Iron Man movie. He's got his AI bot called Jarvis. For those of you who don't know, Jarvis is like, it's like an AGI that helps him do everything. So I don't know, 10 movies later, you get Age of Ultron, and they have this humanoid robot that has no mind in it. Well, Tony Stark was able to take the mind of Jarvis and put it inside the body of this humanoid robot, and that's where we get the character Vision. What you're doing right now is you're almost like building a mind that knows you, like actually knows you, and that someday when the tools get better and better and better, you can take that mind as you've been working with it, and you can put that mind in a body, so to speak, and have that mind that which the actual technical term is corpus, have that corpus installed into a tool that knows you and now works for you. That's one of the reasons, that's a huge reason why you want to start doing this today, is because the more time you invest into this, the better it's going to get to know you. Also get to know your team and your business. Um, the idea of beginning with the end in mind is when you know what that bot is supposed to do, you'll know when you get there by seeing the prompts that it's giving you. So we have an AI team. So I'll introduce you to some of our AI bots. Not really, but so first off, we have Brandon. Brandon Brand in is our first bot that was we built to kind of carry our brand voice, write our social media posts, and also understands our team and our business. We've created an entire knowledge base of identity creative, everything from who does what, how we got started. You know, we started as a graphics company. Now we do all these additional things. So Brandon knows all that. My goal with Brandon is to one day take his corpus and put it into a chatbot on our website so that people can actually talk to Brandon, and it would be like talking to Identity Creative. So Brandon is like the embodiment of Identity Creative. That's the goal with Brandon. Um, because Brandon writes our social media posts, he speaks with our brand voice. And the problem with that is the way we talk is not the way our customers want to talk or be spoken to. So there's this term ICP, ideal customer profile. And one of our ideal customer profiles is manufacturing and industrial plants. So when we write a social media post, we want to make sure it resonates with them. Well, if Brandon writes the post, it's going to be good because it's going to capture the brand essence, right? The problem is the way he writes it isn't going to necessarily work well with those people. So we put Luke together, and Luke represents our ICP. So we take a post that Brandon writes and we give it to Luke and we say, "Hey, how would you perceive this?" And Luke is trained to be blunt and tell right straight to your face and say it in as few words as possible. And Luke will say, like, if Brandon gives us a post, I say this post sucks because I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with this, whatever. So Luke will generate a new post. Now somebody could say, well, why don't you just have Luke generate a post? Well, Luke is going to be leaving out some of the core ideas of what Brandon brings to the table. So these two together are kind of like our writing team. And these two, I know that Linda and Aaron, who writes our social media posts, they have access to these tools so that they can write quickly and make sure that the content is written in a way that our ideal customers are going to digest. Then we have Enzo. I came up with the idea for Enzo when our business coach was giving us a lot of homework. And Enzo, Matt, this will kind of answer some of the questions that you had. We would give Enzo all of the forms, all of the PDFs, everything that our business coach was giving us. But what we also did was we took the main corpus of what Brandon has, which is a foundational understanding of our business. We helped Brandon to train Enzo on our business. Then we took all of the business coaching tools that our business coach was giving us, combined all those, and trained Enzo on purposes, goals, different things like our quarterly objectives. And so now Enzo, now he has a full understanding of our team, our business, like everything about us. Now, but he also understands the goals that our business coach is implementing. Enzo now gives us actionable insights on how we should be handling day-to-day operations. The other thing that came in really handy with Enzo is our business coach, which we told him we were doing this and he was cool with it. He would give us all of these documents to fill out. Well, that takes a lot of time. So we told Enzo, we said, he's got all those documents. We said, all of these forms, Enzo, go ahead and fill these forms out. So he filled out the forms and that saved us a ton of time. And then we went through, and actually what was interesting was one of the forms contained something about our ICP, and the way Enzo wrote our ICP was not fully accurate. So we took the ICP profile and we gave it to Luke and we said, what does this sound like to you? And how would you rewrite it? And Luke is like, yeah, this is definitely not me. Here's what I would say. And it was so quick and so robust. So ICP, I think it stands for Ideal Customer Profile, right? Is that right, Linda? So if it's a marketing, manufacturing, engineering type of guy, we want to resonate with him. Right. So then, so Enzo helps us with our business coaching. He doesn't write for us. Enzo gives us plans and strategy. Then from there, we have Scarlett, which I came up with the idea for Scarlett because Enzo was giving us actionable insights for the business, but wasn't giving me like granular sales coaching stuff. And the other reason why I try to bifurcate this is because sometimes you can confuse one bot in their purpose by adding another purpose to it. So instead of being a business coach, I needed a sales coach, somebody who's going to say, I could say, hey, it's a Monday. What's my objective for today? And Scarlett gives me my objectives, helped me build a sales strategy in conjunction with what Enzo knows. Scarlett has also been trained on the corpus that Brandon gave her of what our business does and how it operates. Now Scarlett takes all that data that we've compiled across all these different bots in order to develop a sales strategy and daily action items for me to execute on. In addition to that, what Scarlett has also been trained on is HubSpot intake forms for how we want to put contacts into HubSpot and how we want to capture these leads. So now Scarlett we've developed a system with Scarlett where we come back from a networking event, we take a picture of every single business card and we put on there whether they're cold, warm, or hot, and then say either they're a lead, referral partner, strategic partner. And then what Scarlett does is she takes all of that and compiles it into a spreadsheet. Then at the end of the week, she generates a spreadsheet of only the contacts we entered for that week. We load that into HubSpot, and that saves us tons of time. And then HubSpot, with its automations, then takes that sheet and delineates who goes where. And so it's a really cool system. So I didn't include it on here, but I also have a custom bot. It's my own personal bot that is trained on the Getting Things Done framework, which I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of, but Getting Things Done is a productivity framework. And so what I did with this bot is I call him Jonas. Jonas is basically my intake for what I need to do. Anytime something comes into my ADHD brain that says, you got to do this, I pull up Jonas and I say, hey, log this task. Boom. I don't have to think about it anymore. So then I can say to Jonas, it's Monday. What do I have to do? And Jonas is like, well, don't forget you had this and this has to get done by this date. And my goal right now, which will be happening soon, is to connect Jonas with ClickUp, which is our project management software, and give Jonas the hands to interact with ClickUp. And my goal is to actually build out a Jonas for every member of our team so that everybody has their own personal assistant that can integrate with all of our platforms. That's going to take some work. I'm working on a few prototypes right now, but those are some of the things that you can customize bots for. So those are just a few ideas. Those are some of the things that we've done. So now I'm going to get into how do you do this? So there's two training methods. And by the way, stop me if I'm going too quickly.
You're not, Matthew, you're not going too quickly, but there was a question that came up about letting one of the bots just take off and with a give away services, which is a good thought. So right now, these are like extra team members that we can interact with and collaborate with. So we don't have Brandon write something and just post it. When you go to I'm sure a lot of you are already using the large language models, the LLMs. So it's just nice to not have a white piece of paper staring at you or blank social media, like, oh, we got to create this. It can generate ideas and be collaborative with you. So it's a back and forth exchange, and we just about tweak everything. So even if Enzo comes back with a plan, we can go, okay, that was a little bit too detailed. Can you streamline it or higher level? So it's more of just, these are collaborative people coming at it from a different angle, pulling stuff from the internet that we're not thinking about. Is that fair,
Yeah.
to say, Matthew?
That's good. One of the reasons why I'm very, very slow to give hands to these models is because, like you asked Amanda, you don't want them to run away and just start doing stuff. It's a big concern. So what I'm saying can be done in theory, but in practice, it's a very untested uh, process that needs a tremendous amount of oversight and slow implementation. Um, any other questions before I move on? Okay. So when we build a bot, there's two ways of doing it. The first training method is the idea of a master prompt. And one of the giveaways that I'm going to have at the end is a full-on master prompt outline and an infographic. So a master prompt, this basically, can you all still see my screen? Do you see the crafting the master prompt?
Yes.
You see that? Okay. So this is an infographic about that I generated about having a strong master prompt. And basically a master prompt is a long text document that has almost like a form field where you're going to go in and things like, what is the role of this bot? What is the execution strategy? And so everything that bot needs to know. This is a much more organized, and one of the things that I'll be giving as well. So like I said, this is the document. It's about 26 pages of, you don't have to go through all of this, but there's a lot of information here. Towards the bottom, point number 7 is an exhaustive master prompt example. So if you wanted to do it this way, you would start here, you would copy this into a new text document, and then you would say act as. So right here, it just generally fills something out for like a science communicator. You would just change this out for somebody on your team that you want this bot to be. This is going to be a very organized way of creating a bot. However, it's going to be more work up front. So the other method is just having a conversation. Now, this is more natural and easier to do, I would say. This is where I got started. You just start talking to a bot and you just start having conversations with it. And you'll see every few seconds, you'll say like, hey, remember that, add this to your context. It'll say, okay, now I've added, you'll see like a little saving progress bar, like, okay, now I've added that to my context. So those are the two training methods. You can also use these two in conjunction. You can create the master prompt, give it the master prompt, and then you can begin having conversations with it too. That's kind of like the best strategy, is using both of these to make sure that you're checking every box. So who would like to see how to do this? All right, cool. Let's do it. So today we're going to build a virtual assistant. Like I mentioned about what I have for my virtual assistant, his name is Jonas. So we're going to do this in OpenAI. Do you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is, if you open OpenAI now, so you have to pay for their Plus subscription, which is $20 a month. But for that $20 a month, you have access to their 4.0 model, which is their image gen tool. You can see here I have 4.0 selected. It's actually, it defaults to that. But what you can also do is you can create custom bots. And this is what we want to talk about today. So the way how you're going to do that is you're going to go to this tab that says GPTs. Okay, and this is being recorded. So if you you don't have to follow along, you can just watch me do it. So you go to GPTs, and then you're going to see this option up here that says My GPTs or Create. So I have a list of GPTs beyond what we just built for our company. I have this tool basically is, his name is Edward. What I do personally is I'm working on novels, and I've gotten 4 exhaustive summaries written. and a bunch of additional stuff. I've given it all to Edward, and Edward basically has an exhaustive knowledge base of everything that I've ever written. And from there, he can help me simulate sequences. He can help me understand nuance of a certain situation to help me write it better. He's not writing for me. He's like a writing guide. So that's something that's another idea of something you could do. But anyway, so we're going to go back to GPTs. You're going to go create. So here in the create tab, remember how I said wisdom and knowledge? So you have two tabs here. You have create and configure. So going back to what I said about these two, master prompt versus conversation, think of that as the delineation between configure and create. So configure is utilizing the master prompt approach. Creating is just having a conversation. Then as you create, you'll see over here on this side of the screen is a preview. And you can select whichever model you want it to be previewing as, and you can test it out and talk to it. So we said we're going to create a virtual assistant. Well, I don't have a knowledge base to give it. I don't have a master prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the conversation, and I like the getting things done framework. So I'm going to start by saying, are you familiar with the GTD framework? So think of this as a blank canvas, right? It says, yes, I'm familiar with Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's time management, productivity. So then basically what I'm going to tell it is, okay, you are my GTD assistant. Okay. And you're going to see here, this is just the beginning of getting started. And I'll say, and your name is Paul. Okay. So now you'll see here, okay, it's updating the GPT. It's saying, okay, all right, now I know what I need to do. So what it's doing right now is it's pulling from its knowledge base of GTD. Now, thankfully, GTD was written, that framework was written pre-2024. The knowledge base that ChatGPT is trained on was a snapshot in history at 2024. So everything before that has a good understanding of. If GTD had just come out, it would start hallucinating. And so that's where, if you want to train it on something that you need more custom up-to-date knowledge on, I'll talk about that in a second. Basically, it's okay, great. Your GTD assistant is now named Paul. Next, I'll create a profile picture for Paul. I'll put that on there. I can always swap that out. But now as I go over to the configure tab, now look, it's already populated all this stuff. And see how it has all this stuff in its window here. So this instructions box is called the context window. Now the context window is its quote unquote wisdom. Okay. So the reason why you don't want to confuse wisdom and knowledge is because in this window, I'm not going to train, let's say I wanted Paul to know everything about my company. I'm not going to tell Paul everything about my company in this window here. This window is limited to 8,000 characters. I can get a lot in here, but I can't get everything. So going back to that one bot that I showed you, Edward, who is basically my novel writing bot. In order to get him the knowledge of everything that I've ever written, I had to come down here to upload files. So this is where you're going to give it the knowledge, okay? So remember, wisdom, this box here is wisdom. This upload files is knowledge. Everything you want to train a bot on that's customized to your business, you want to train with uploaded files from that you've created. Now, also full transparency. OpenAI is open, so that means that they train their data on the things that you give them. If you don't want stuff trained on what you give it, you would have to pay the $200 a month for the enterprise. So one of the reasons why it's not like a major privacy concern for us is because we don't have SEC compliance. We don't have HIPAA compliance. We don't have anything in the legal industry. We're basically anything that we're giving it is like maybe like our own proprietary information, stuff like that. So let me give you an example of a bot that I created for a video production company where I was uploading files. Basically, they had a spreadsheet of all of their pricing information. They had a spreadsheet of all of the gear that they have in-house. Then they had all these past invoices that I could use all that data to train this model on, so that the intention for that model was I could take the notes from an onboarding call with a client, and I could give it to the model, and based on all the past pricing information and even seeing the nuance of an invoice, um, it would then generate a proposal within uh, a lot of accuracy. I was probably like 95% accurate. And then from there, we just go and tweak the proposal. In addition to that, it would also generate a gear list for what was needed on site. And it would say, it would pick from the library of gear that they had, and it would say, you need to bring these two cameras with these lenses, make sure, and it had a checklist for everything. That saved so much time, probably 4 hours of time, and it was actually more thorough than what they were doing previously. So once I get Paul to where I want him, then now I can coach him on how I want him to talk. Um, so so let's say I like, I want somebody who's more like a Marine, like very like hardcore, get it done, no BS. Um, and I would say like speak to me in a very commanding tone, as if you were my drill sergeant. Um, I don't know if I spelled that right. But and then what he'll do then, now he's adding that to his knowledge. Once that's done, if I go over to the configure tab, you'll see how he talks to me. So now I say, like, let's say I'll test it out and I'll say, hey, um, I don't feel like working today. Let's just see what he says. Too bad. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Motivation is a luxury. Or you see what I'm saying? So you can go in, you can test it. Now let's say I don't want like it when a GPT has long responses. Then I would go in here and I would say, keep the responses short and concise. Now you'll see that it's going to add that to its data, or it's going to add that to its context window or its corpus. The cool thing about this is the more you train it, the better it will get. So if I say the same thing, now I'm going to test it again. Paul, this prompt just cracks me up because I'm just giving him what he wants. I don't want to work today. Now let's see if he keeps the response shorter. Okay. So the response is actually not shorter, but it is more concise. Or at least it seems a little bit more direct. So then what I would do is I would come back in here and I'd say, okay, I don't like it when you talk like this, or I don't like lists. I like bullets. And it's going to add everything that you coach it on, the how it talks to you. It's going to add all that to this context window. So you'll see here, it says getting things done, but you also see here, you speak in a commanding drill sergeant tone, direct, no nonsense, and motivational. You push the user to take action, stay accountable, maintain discipline. It wrote this itself based on me just saying, speak to me like a drill sergeant. You see what I'm saying? So then once I've got it where I want it, I'm going to hit create. Let's say I want it to be private. I'm just going to say only me. I'm going to click save. And then I'm going to start using it. I'm going to go view GPT. I'm going to start using Paul. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to iterate. So let's say I have an important task. I need you to log. This is a design that, by the way, you can actually have spelling errors and it doesn't care. It understands. This is a design that a client needs for a new business card or something. So now what he's going to do, he's going to say, we're capturing that. Give me the raw details. What exactly? So then I'll give him more information. But then let's say I come across something. I'm like, oh, you know what? Okay, I don't like that he's saying that or he's doing this. That's where I said, be patient, be persistent. I'm going to go back into Paul. I'm going to go edit GPT. And then I'm going to say something like, Paul, make sure that you yada, yada, yada. talk like this or talk like that, or don't say this. You have to remember, once you do that, you have to update the GPT. Okay. If you don't update it, it won't save what anything that new. Now, here's another thing that is very important to remember. So now I'm in a new chat. If I go back to this chat, business card design, whatever, you'll see this chat, it just named it business card design log. So this chat down here does not retain the updated coaching that I just gave it. Does that make sense? Okay. By the way, I can't see it. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So you said it
Yes.
doesn't retain the updated coaching, but you just configured it and you updated the GPT. Is that what you mean? Or you say it's not related to that same chat?
So anytime I start a chat and like I'm using that custom GPT and I notice something about the custom GPT that needs to be updated, or maybe it doesn't know something. When I go in and I edit that GPT and I start a new chat, that new chat is up to date. But that first chat that I began with is
Okay.
not up to date. So
Right.
you will frustrate yourself if you go back to that chat and say, okay, now it's not going to know. Then, you know, in a month or so, they might change that, but that's kind of one of the frustrations to help navigate that. Any questions so far? Any thoughts?
Yes. So because it wasn't updated at the business card question chat, and you enter in now, you pick that chat back up again and you say something, that chat is still in the old configuration.
Correct.
So you'd have to bring it into the new, like, new
Yes.
prompt. Okay.
Yes. So
Matthew-
one of my practices for writing or for training a bot is in a chat that I see is outdated, I'll actually delete that or archive that chat. I don't want myself to confuse, oh wait, which period in time. I want to be working with the most up-to-date GPT. Does that make sense? Okay, Matthew, you had a question?
I had a question. So let's say you are a big fan of like some sort of business book or whatever, and you like
Yeah.
like 90% of it, but you don't like the 10%. In fact, that 10% is like totally antithesis to, or antithetical to what you do. But you say you're trying to change your bot or your assistant, whatever, and you say, yes, be familiar with this work, but then how do you like try to deprogram it for the stuff that you don't like? Or do you, as you're interacting with it, you say, look, there is part of this, I don't like it. Is it smart enough or intuitive to understand that? Or how does that work?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Now, sometimes, like I said, sometimes you might need to tell it something a few times. I'm Matt, I had mentioned this to you on our last phone call, was that I'm training a bot right now. It's a personal bot, and all this bot is designed. I actually call it Matthew, and it has my image. It's supposed to be me. My goal is to have this bot sound exactly like me. So I'm training it. I send it screenshots of texts that I send, emails that I've sent to people. And it's training itself on how I talk. I've gotten it pretty close, but one of the things I cannot do is I cannot break this bad habit of using what's called an M dash. Are you guys familiar with what an M dash is? So an M dash is the telltale sign that an AI wrote something. How many times has anyone ever used this little icon when they write naturally? It's not even on your keyboard. Only professional writers use this, and 99% of us are not professional writers. So anytime you're writing something and it contains that, if it's a social media post, it's basically like screaming out, hey, this was written either by a professional writer or an AI. 9 times out of 10, or more often than that, it's going to be written by an AI. So, like, let's say I'll click on my Matthew bot and I'll say, um, write an email to, I have to give it more information. Let me just be more basic than that. I'll just say, are you supposed to use an M dash? And I have coached this bot with great frustration. Nope. And see how he says it just like me. Nope. I'm not supposed to use an M dash ever. If something needs a pause or break, I'll use a comma, period, parentheses. So finally, I've gotten this bot, Matthew Kleiss, to the point where he's not using M dashes, but still he uses them. It's like, when will you break that habit? So because the M dash is a deeply embedded habit into an LLM's base corpus, if that makes sense. So Matt, you might find that as you've told us, like I've told you this 5 times already, don't integrate that part of the book or that knowledge base. I don't like that part. it'll say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right." So that's why the verifying is important, but it will really start to get it the more you use it. It'll start to understand it better and better. Um, there's another cool thing that I didn't plan to show you because of time constraints. I don't, if we have time, then I'll get into that. But it's my wife, she homeschools, and so I created a custom GPT for her to homeschool. However, if I were to say, hey, use this homeschooling principle, um, it would just basically go and take like a base understanding of that principle. But if you go over to now, because I really like Google Gemini's deep research, I can go over to Google Gemini's deep research and I can say, give me an exhaustive, in-depth analysis on the school of thought for this type of homeschooling specifically. And it will give me a like a 50-page document on how a bot should be trained to coach a parent on that type of homeschooling approach. Another tool that I gave was like, okay, now let's add to that a different and integrate these two schools of thought because we like some of this and we like some of that. So I ran a deep analysis on this school of thought. And then I took those and I uploaded that into its knowledge base. And I said, you are now designed to merge these two concepts together. Be sure to leave this out. Be sure to bring this in. And so now my wife has her own custom GPT homeschooling bot. You see what I'm saying? So there's really, I don't think that there's a limit to how many of these you can create. But I'm constantly finding new reasons to create bots. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Amanda had a good question. From the seminar, you said that bots work better when you are nice to them, compliment them, thank them, etc. What are some specific things or ways you do this? How do you show appreciation for chat, for example, when you want to take what they give you and run with it? It's hard to get back to them.
So that's a good question. So, one of the things about the idea behind being kind to a chatbot has more to do with you than it does with them. Because if you have that approach that a chatbot is like a team member, like we talked about in the seminar, then you are naturally going to be more patient with it as you train it. Now when I'm training it too, over in this context window, or not the context window, the create tab. Oops, let's go back here to Paul. We're gonna go back to edit this GPT. This is in this window here. If I'm saying thank you, I appreciate that. Really what it's doing is it's affirming that whatever it just did for me, I'm happy with. So it's going to do more of that. So to some degree, you don't have to necessarily be nice to it in how you speak. You can just, but I find that because I interact with these things better, if I perceive them as an individual, then I speak the way how I would just naturally speak to this if it was a real person. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry if it doesn't. Okay. All right. So now I want to kind of briefly touch on, oops, I apologize. If I've got time, how to run a deep analysis or deep research. Now, I personally like Google Gemini for this because Gemini seems to do an incredible job at deep research. The other thing that's really cool about Gemini is if you're trying to learn something, Gemini works with Notebook LM and can create audio files that explain something that you just asked it about. I showed that in the seminar. One quick note over here on Gemini, if you have the Google Workspace, this comes to you for free. Gemini can do their own version of creating a chatbot. It's called, instead of called a custom GPT, it's called a gem. So I can go to, no, not down there, explore gems. And so they have some default gems, or you can create a gem pretty much the same way. You can see that this is the wisdom and this is the knowledge. You see what I'm saying? So, and it's got the little preview window over here. Slightly different. Gems are okay. I'm not as crazy about them. So that's why I wanted to show you it with a custom GPT instead of a Google Gemini gem. Claude has their own version of this too, but from what I found, OpenAI seems to be the simplest and the easiest to use. But when I need to do a deep research or get something to train a bot on, I would click the deep research button, and then I would say, so I'm trying to think of how, like going back to this example of Paul, my virtual assistant. If I were to say something like, give me a deep dive analysis. So if I just say of the GTD framework, I'm probably not going to be giving Paul anything new because Paul already has an idea of the full on GTD framework. However, if I tell Gemini here in a deep research, combine that with uh, um, in conjunction with our business, and then I give it, dot identitycreative.com. I tell it I want to train a bot on how to run this system for this business. And I click enter. What the deep research is going to do is it's going to give me a plan. Now, obviously, you see I had spelling errors in there. That's okay. I'm not going to spend my time trying to fix it. I'm not writing an email. So here's the plan. It says, okay, first, I'm going to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the GTD framework, including core principles, methodologies, typical workflow stages. Then I'm going to investigate common tools, analyze and analyze the business operations, identify specific areas of processes within Identity Creative's operations where GTD can be effectively integrated, explore potential challenges, outline specific data points, research case studies, define whatever. So if there's anything missing in here, I'm like, oh, I would also like it if you could synthesize whatever. Then I can go edit plan and say, also do this. But let's say I'm good with that. I'm going to hit start research. It's going to scrape the internet and it's going to show me how it's doing this. And it's going to take probably, depending on the ask, this is probably not that big of an ask, but it's going to take probably 15 minutes. And you can read what it's doing as it's doing it. So it's saying, first off, I'm starting a deep dive, specifically how it can be applied to Identity Creative's business operations. Here's the websites it's beginning to look into right now. You can see it's looking at multiple tabs on our website. It's already looked at the About tab on our website. It's gone to all these other websites. It's gone to Asana. It's gone to, I don't reckon, or Motion, which is another project management tool. And from there, it's just going to keep populating down what it's doing as it's doing it. What it's doing right now is it's actually looking at these websites and it's getting an understanding of the initial query, and then it's going to show me its next stage of thinking. And then from there, it's going to go do more research on websites, just like it said it would in that deep research plan. The cool thing about this, when this is done, is I can generate more than just a report. So real quick, let me go back to this page here. So this whole idea of creating a master prompt, this was born out of a deep research. From there, I also was able to generate an infographic, which I can share with you. This infographic was made based on my query and to give me a good understanding of how I can better use prompting, or how I can better do prompting. This never existed before I did this, which is pretty cool. And I didn't spend any time working on this. You can see it's got little nodes. I can, get a better understanding. I can also, from this Google Deep Research, create an interactive website. And using tools like GitHub, I can create interactive website portals that have my URL. So like our Identity Creative URL, and throw a tag on there, which is an additional portal that I just made right now. So let's go back over to that deep research. Okay, so it's about a third of the way done. So it's obviously going to go a lot quicker. So now it said it's understanding GTD core principles, exploring these tools for business. Insightful insights into Identity Creative. It says, I've started to analyze Identity Creative's online presence, noting that they operate under 2 main domains. And then it goes into, which, to be honest, I didn't know that we had a European domain. Is that us, Linda?
No,
Oh, okay.
we've trademarked the US. We can't go after
Ah,
people in the UK.
got it. Okay. But then what it's doing is, so it says the .com, on the other hand, positions them as a guide for B2B companies through a brand first process to fuel account-based marketing and sales success. Yes, this is us. And then it says, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to research all these companies. Now it did that. It's deepening its understanding of the getting things done framework. It's connecting getting things done to Identity Creative's operations. Now it's going to do more research on all these other companies. And it says, that what it's going to do here is going to focus on identifying specific GTD integration areas within Identity Creative services and workflows. And now it's researching these websites and it's going to come up with more actionable insights from there. Now it's already halfway done, so you can see that it's a pretty fast process. So well, that's kind of baking. Why don't we let me just quickly show you another tool. Unless there's any thoughts or questions.
No, I just want you to be on track with the time.
Right. Okay. Good
And
point.
then,
So
and then ask, we wanted to get ideas from people too. There was a question that has not gotten answered yet, but we did want to get, if people want to put them in the chat, or you can respond back after topics for future, the next AI accelerator. So one of the questions that came through was about hallucinations. And I don't know if you can address all of that right now. Let's see where I just had
what was
it.
the question about hallucinations?
I think Amanda, you had it. Do you want to just pop on with your microphone and share it?
So I was asking, how do you know if AI is hallucinating? I know you were saying that you can compare the AI that might hallucinate with other AIs. But I guess, like, is there another way to also research it, especially when it's agentic? Because,
That's a good question. Sorry, what were you saying?
well, I recently saw there was like a think tank trying to predict the Supreme Court justices' outcomes on upcoming cases in June. And so the way that they did it is they reran their test. They gave it some data, all data, and things like that. They did it 10 times, and they also put it into different bots or different AI just to create an accurate bot. And I was wondering if that's something you think is good, or if there are other ways you would do it as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, just full transparency, because of my day-to-day workflow, I'm not working in a high stakes environment where that combined with the fact that hallucinations happen less and less because it's got more and more data, especially with all these other companies now creating bots. But yes, doing cross comparing different answers from different bots is also a really good idea. What I have heard is that most people won't know if a bot is hallucinating unless you are an expert in that field. So Tom Brennan over there, he's a CAD instructor. So if he were to say, like, ask a question about something with CAD or AutoCAD, and it says, yeah, the way to do that is you do this, and he knows for a fact that that's not possible. You see what I'm saying? You see how only experts might catch those things. So that's something that because Amanda, you're in the financial sector, so you would catch a hallucination more easily than I would. It really comes down to your own expertise, which is why it's wise not to deliver information with full confidence if you're not if a good understanding of that. You see what I'm saying?
And also, TJ added, so TJ, maybe you saw this in law school, they were coming up using LLMs. Is that why you said that? That you said you can ask the LLM if it made anything up and it will answer you honestly? You can unmic if you want to.
That's right. Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you, TJ. Yeah, that's something that's a lot of times the bots now, when you give it a prompt, it will actually take your prompt and write a new prompt to then execute on. So a lot of times you can say, what prompt that this is a new feature. That's why like a year and a half ago when people were saying, you got to get really good at prompting. That's not necessary, like not necessarily true anymore, but you can say like, hey, what prompt did you just receive from me? Like what prompt did you give yourself to execute on what I just said? You'll see it's going to give you a much longer in-depth prompt. And then from there you can say like, yeah, no, that's not what I meant. That's another little tidbit. But um one of the things, I know we got less than 5 minutes left. One of the things that we really want to do as far as continuously providing value is understand what we talked about today was valuable and what can we talk about next time that's going to be valuable to what you do and how you can do your job better. And this is free for all. Any thoughts?
One of the things I would like to talk about is copyright things. So not necessarily from us into an AI, but more about if they're creating images and everything like that, what is legal to post, what
Okay.
should you do, best practices on how to publish things from AI, because that's something I want to know. And also one of the things that we find like is that sometimes in our industry we'll have marketers who market to us and different companies, and they do just variations on a theme, and then you
Mhm.
look at things and it's so similar between these other companies. So a question I have now is, are AIs kind of giving you like a one size fits all but tweaked except across the whole board of all this stuff, or how do you even check that necessarily?
Yeah, so that's where like customizing what you're getting is important because if you just give it like and a lot of the photos here, so let me give you a quick example. So like this one, a woman in an office talking to a robot was the prompt that I gave it. I didn't care. I didn't need something fancy, so it generated this image. If somebody else were to say something similar, it's going to give a very similar looking image. You see what I'm saying? But if you want your stuff to really stand out, that's kind of the onus is on you to really make sure that it's not because what it's going to do is it's going to take that generic approach and say, okay, this is normally what they want. So bam. Um, so that's probably why a lot of these people's marketing approaches are looking similar. Um, so that all goes back to understanding your brand image, understanding what your brand voice is, making sure that whatever the AI is generating is consistent with your brand. That's why even though I talk about this stuff, I'm trying to build these tools in the background. I haven't yet launched any of them yet because it isn't to the point where I can trust it to carry our brand image. If I did launch it right now, it's too early. It's going to be affecting our brand image. But yes, no, that is a very good question on understanding like royalty free usage rights, stuff like that. So that's a
Okay.
good note. We'll take that for later.
Yes, we are wrapping up on time. And Amanda, we have some law experts here on the call. So I think that the law is not keeping up with AI, not at all. So, but that would be a great topic for next time. If any of you
Yeah.
have questions that come to mind later or topics you would like to add to the agenda for our next meeting, and then we'll also send out an email letting you know that you can register for the next one so that you're on that mailing list. You can always email Matthew at Identity Creative and let him know your topic, questions, and interest.
Yeah. Thank you all for making it on the call. Like Linda said, feel free to shoot me a text or an email if you have any follow-up questions.